My mother is a formidable woman in the business world. My father is a grand master of the scientific community. My younger brother is a 14-year-old prodigy already admitted directly into a special class for gifted youths. The combined IQ of the three of them could probably wrap around the earth several times. And yet, living under the shadow of such an elite family, there came out, me. The eldest daughter, slow in reaction, dull in thinking, consistently ranking dead last in class. Just as the whole family was staring at me coldly because I'd failed another subject. The real heiress of the Lam family appeared. Luke Win-dong strode in wearing a haute couture channel suit, followed by the nation's top lawyer holding an ADN test report. Her presence was overwhelming. She tossed everything onto the table, eyes blazing with superiority, and clearly accused me of stealing the 18 years of wealthy life that should have been hers. After hearing her out, I burst into tears, grabbed her hand tightly, and looked at her with overflowing gratitude. Big sister, you finally came. Whoever likes this top-tier rich household can stay. With my 2-digit IQ, I really don't deserve it. I've already packed. I'll get out right now. The whole family froze. Even Luke Win-dong didn't react in time. She had assumed I'd cry, fight, and make a scene. Who would have thought I sincerely just wanted to be a salted fish? IQ really is something decided by heaven at birth. My mother is Wah Kin-do, chairwoman of the Wah Corporation, nicknamed the demon of the business world. She reads financial reports faster than I flip through comics. My father is Lam Kwok-dong, an academician of the Academy of Sciences, whose mind is filled either with quantum mechanics or black hole theory. My younger brother Lam Kai-fong has an IQ of 150, he memorizes books at a glance. While I was still struggling with the multiplication table, he was already casually calculating integrals in his head. And me, Lam Kin, English score 20, Math 15. Because I failed too many subjects. The school officially suggested I withdraw. A genuine top-tier academic disaster. At that moment, the 500 square meter living room of my house was as cold as an ice cellar. Lam Kin, can you explain to me what this withdrawal notice is about? Wah Kin-do pushed up her gold-rimmed glasses, her calm voice chilling to the bone. Honored mother, ahem, I think the chairs at school aren't very comfortable. They seriously affect my performance. I curled up in the corner of the sofa, still holding half an apple I'd been chewing. Bang! Lam Kwok-dong slammed the science journal in his hand onto the table. 3 generations of Tsinghua scholars. 2 generations of Harvard graduates. And we produced a useless thing like you? Dad, mutations are also a scientific phenomenon. You two should study me instead of scolding me, I muttered weakly. Beside me, Lam Kai-fong twisted a Rubik's Cube and let out a cold laugh. Study you? Study how brain cells degenerate into single-celled organisms. Before I could argue back, the housekeeper, Uncle Lee, rushed in breathlessly. Sir, ma'am, outside there's a young lady claiming she's the real eldest daughter of the Lam family. She's brought a lawyer. The living room doors opened. A girl in a tailored white high-end suit walked in. Posture straight, elite aura unmistakable. She resembled my mother 80%. That sharpness, one glance and you could tell she was the biological child. Mrs. Wah, Mr. Lam, this is the ADN appraisal report. She tossed the file onto the table with crisp efficiency. My name is Luke Win-dong. 18 years ago, due to a hospital error, I was mistakenly taken home by an ordinary family. The archived medical records are inside. As for the person who took my place, it seems she never appreciated the resources of the Lam family. Did she? She turned, her disdainful gaze sweeping over me. Lam Kin, right? Stealing someone else's life, how does it feel? I stared at the report on the table, my whole body trembling uncontrollably. Seeing that, Luke Win-dong assumed I was scared, and the sneer on her lips deepened. What's wrong? Can't bear to leave this wealthy life? Can't bear to part with designer bags and luxury cars? No, that's not it. She curled her lips. Then you're afraid to go back to your poor real parents, aren't you? Before she could finish, I suddenly jumped up, rushed straight to her, and grabbed her hands. Sister, my real sister, you finally came. My eyes reddened, my voice choked. Do you know how long I've waited for this day? Quick, here's the house key, here's my black card, here's Dad's research paper he hasn't finished reading, here's Mom's investment plan for next quarter. I emptied everything from my pockets and stuffed it into her hands. From today on, you're the eldest daughter of the Lam family. You handle Tsinghua, you handle inheriting the family fortune. You handle competing IQs with that abnormal little brother for me. Luke Windong froze. All the harsh words she'd prepared stuck in her throat. What are you playing at? She asked warily. No game. I'm serious. I wiped my tears and snot messily. Then turned and shouted, Mom, my savior is here. Hurry. Bring the household register and cross my name out. Write Sister Windong's in. Whoever likes this top-tier rich household can stay. With my IQ, I'm not worthy of breathing the air here. The living room instantly sank into deathly silence. Behind her glasses, Hua Qindu's eyes flashed with icy light. Academician Lam Kwok Dong frowned so hard his wrinkles nearly twisted together. The Rubik's Cube in Lam Kai Fong's hand made a faint crack. It shattered. Luke Windong truly deserved her reputation as a top elite. Her reaction speed was terrifying. She immediately shook off my hands, adjusted her collar, and looked coolly toward Hua Qindu and Lam Kwok Dong. Since the truth is clear, I hope I can move in today. As for this imposter, according to the law, she should return to where she belongs. She pointed straight at me, undisguised disgust in her gaze. Her biological parents are just ordinary civil servants living in a shabby 40-square-meter apartment. Lam Qin, this is your destiny. I heard every word clearly, and my eyes lit up at once. 40 square meters, old apartment, civil servant family. That meant from now on I wouldn't have to be dragged out of bed at 4 a.m. every day by my brother to memorize German vocabulary. I wouldn't have to listen to Dad explaining that damn stuff about black holes and quantum theory while eating breakfast. I wouldn't have to be forced by Mom to attend high society charity galas and become a laughingstock again and again because I couldn't understand the French menu. Sister Windong, I looked at her with hopeful eyes. My real parents' house doesn't require studying calculus, right? She looked at me like I was mentally defective. They probably don't even know what higher mathematics is. Satisfied? More than satisfied. I was so happy I almost jumped on the spot. Hua Qindu took a deep breath. A vein throbbed at her temple. Lam Qin, do you really want this? Mom, it's not that I want to leave. I answered righteously, chin lifted. It's time I returned Sister Windong's place. Isn't it? Look at her temperament. That gaze, one look and you know she's the type who can handle 10 billion contracts daily. Then look at me. I only know how to watch Pleasant Goat and Big Wolf. If I stay, I'll drag down the Lam family's average IQ. I might even affect the feng shui. Academician Lam Kwok Dong trembled with anger. Nonsense. Even if you're not our biological child. The Lam family raised you 18 years. You grow attached even raising a dog. Dad, dogs can guard the house. I looked at him sincerely. I've lost the house key 3 times. I'm worse than a dog. Mr. Lam pointed at me, repeating, you, 8 times. Still unable to decide how to scold me. Seeing my determination to leave couldn't be shaken, Luke Windong snorted coldly and walked to the sofa to sit down. Her posture was elegant and composed, like a queen accustomed to sitting high above. Mr. Lam, feelings can be cultivated, but genes can't be changed. I've won the National Math Olympiad gold medal 3 times. I'm fluent in 4 foreign languages. And I'm currently applying for early admission to Harvard. I think I'm the daughter most suited to the Lam family. She shot me a provocative glance. Lam Qin, besides eating, what can you do? I thought seriously for a moment. I can sleep. Oh right, I can also drink a whole liter of milk tea without burping. Disgust flashed across her face. Vulgar. She turned to Lam Kai Fong. Lam Kai Fong, right? I heard you're a genius. Coincidentally, I have quite a few academic questions I'd like to discuss with you. Lam Kai Fong didn't even glance at her. His eyes stayed fixed on me. Lam Qin, do you really want to go? I'm going. Definitely going, I answered without hesitation. Whoever tries to stop me, I'll fight them to the death. As soon as I finished speaking, I immediately rushed upstairs. In less than 10 minutes, I came running downstairs carrying a ragged burlap sack. Inside it I'd stuffed all my favorite comics and snacks. Designer bags, custom-made dresses, jeweled accessories. I didn't take any of them. All of that was just shackles. Humiliation, proof of the elite class pressing down on me. Mom, Dad, I'm off. Sister Windong, I wish you early success inheriting the family fortune. Try to get the Hua Corporation listed next year. I flicked my sleeve and walked away without taking a single cloud with me. Just before stepping out, I turned back to add, oh right, sister, your brother has a habit of sleep harassment. If he throws cold water on you at 6 in the morning, don't call the police. He's helping activate your brain cells. Luke Windong's face froze instantly. I strode out of the villa. The air outside was so fresh it almost made me cry. When she'd given me the address earlier, her tone had been dripping with condescension. It's an old neighborhood in the suburbs. Poor drainage. Lots of mosquitoes in summer. Old ladies love gossiping there. Pray for yourself. I hailed a taxi straight to the place she'd called a slum. When I stood in front of the aging apartment complex, worn yet bursting with the breath of real life, I nearly dropped to my knees and kissed the ground. Downstairs someone had set up a stall selling fried skewers. A few old men sat in a circle playing chess, arguing so fiercely their spit flew everywhere. Kids ran across the courtyard shouting and laughing. Over by the side, several aunties in floral shirts cracked sunflower seeds while gossiping. This was the mortal world. This was my home turf. Following the address, I knocked on door 212. The one who opened it was a middle-aged woman wearing an apron, still holding a spatula. When she saw me, she froze. Why, you're Lambkin? My nose tingled. Tears burst out instantly. Wah! I cried loudly. Mom, I finally found civilization. I lunged forward and hugged her tight. She didn't smell like cold luxury perfume. She smelled like hot braised pork. Oh heavens, my daughter must have suffered all these years. Didn't you? Mom. Luke hurriedly pulled me inside, her voice trembling with emotion. The house really was small. Once the sofa sat in the living room, there was barely space to turn around. But the walls were covered in cute patterned wallpaper. The TV had a white lace cover, and peeled orange slices were already set out on the coffee table. Kin, that girl Windong, she went back already? Dad. Luke came out from the room, rubbing his hands awkwardly. I'm back, I said, plopping onto a little stool and popping an orange slice into my mouth. She's very happy. She's preparing to inherit $1 trillion fortune. Mom, Dad, I swallowed and asked seriously. Does our house have a curfew? Dad. Luke blinked. Curfew? Come home whenever you want. Do I have to wake up at 5 every morning to memorize vocabulary? Mom. Luke laughed. Memorize what? I can't even tell those things apart. Sleep as late as you like. Do we have to analyze international financial trends or discuss controlled nuclear fusion while eating? Dad. Luke burst out laughing. At our table we just talk about pork prices going up 5 cents or how old Wang's dog had puppies again. Hearing that, tears rolled down my face. What's wrong, Kin? You're not looking down on us for not having prospects, are you? Mom. Luke panicked and hurriedly wiped my tears. No, my voice choked, eyes red. I'm just too happy. Mom, I want braised pork, the fatty kind that isn't greasy. I want to eat 3 bowls of white rice at the Lamb House. To maintain that so-called socialite figure, I was only allowed half a bowl of brown rice each meal and had to swallow a plate of bland salad. All right, Mom. Luke beamed. I'll make it right away. That night I lay on a bed that was narrow but soft. Occasionally a car horn sounded outside the window, and yet I slept better than I ever had. No alarm clock, no essays I could never finish, no looks from Lam Kai Fong like I was mentally deficient. I didn't wake up until noon the next day, jolted by urgent pounding on the door. Yawning, I shuffled out to open it. Outside stood Luke Windong in sportswear, her face haggard, silent, dark circles hung under her eyes, her hair slightly messy, nothing like yesterday's elite brilliance. Lamkin, come out here, she glared at me through clenched teeth. What's wrong, Sister Windong? I tilted my head innocently. Is the bed at the Lamb House too hard? Hurt your genius brain? She stormed in, grabbed my shoulders, her voice shaking with rage. That Lam Kai Fong, is he sick? He dragged me out of bed at 4 in the morning insisting I debate the survival probability of a cat in multi-dimensional space. When I ignored him, he blasted heavy metal rock right outside my door. I looked at her sympathetically. Sis, I told you, he's activating your brain cells. That's elite education, Lamb style. She collapsed. And your mother? She handed me a stack of contracts all in French and ordered me to finish a risk assessment report within 3 hours. I said I hadn't studied legal terminology. She asked if I'd left my brain in the hospital when I was born. I patted her shoulder slowly, earnestly. Sis, if you wear the crown, you must bear its weight. You're the top science scorer. A genius. How could things like that possibly trouble you? All I can do is wish you success from here. Keep it up. Luke Win Dong paced around the living room like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. Lam Kin, you did this on purpose. You deliberately didn't tell me your family is full of lunatics. I spread my hands innocently. Sis, I told you already. That place isn't fit for humans. You said yourself only someone as outstanding as you deserved the Lam family. Now you got exactly what you wished for. Isn't that great? She trembled with fury. Then her gaze suddenly stopped on the skewer in my hand. A flicker of craving flashed in her eyes. What are you eating? Street skewers. I grinned. 50 cents each. Extra oil, extra salt, extra spice. So fragrant one bite makes you ascend to heaven on the spot. I held one out to her. Want a bite? The exact kind of junk food the Lam family absolutely forbids. She hesitated, but instinct won. She snatched it and bit hard. In that instant her eyes widened. There's actually something this delicious in the world? No, this is junk. This is irresponsible to my body. When my parents bought these for me before, I wouldn't even touch them. Her mouth said that, but her hands swiftly grabbed the remaining 3 skewers. Don't think you can laugh at me like this. Lam Kin, I Luke Win Dong, will never admit defeat. They're just a bunch of lunatics. I can handle them. She forced herself back into her elite posture and turned to leave. Watching her slightly unsteady back, I sighed. Sis, you're still too young. The next few days I lived like an immortal. I woke naturally, learned cooking from my birth mother, and spent afternoons in the park watching old men play chess. Until 1 week later, Hua Kin-du herself came to the door. Her Rolls-Royce stopped in front of our cramped old complex, instantly drawing a crowd. She stepped into our home, her gaze sweeping over the tiny living room, brows knitting so tightly they could have crushed a fly. Lam Kin, come back with me, she said directly, her tone allowing no refusal. My mom cracked sunflower seeds leisurely and asked calmly, isn't Win Dong already there? She's not doing well? Hua Kin-du's face stiffened. She's too eager to prove herself. To demonstrate her ability, she altered the company's investment plan on her own and caused the Hua Corporation to lose 300 million. I sucked in a sharp breath. 300 million? Sister Win Dong really did strike hard. And Lam Kai Fong, Hua Kin-du pressed her temple, voice weary, because she wanted to compete with him. She tampered with reagents in his lab and almost blew up the entire villa. He's currently screaming that he wants to send her to a psychiatric hospital and slice her up for research. I couldn't hold back a laugh. As expected of my real sister. Her combat power is truly overwhelming. So what? Why are you looking for me? I can't recover those 300 million. And I don't know how to run experiments. She looked at me, her gaze complicated. Lam Kin, the house is in chaos. Without you there to joke around. Lam Kwok Dong hasn't slept for 3 days. Lam Kai Fong is on the verge of losing his mind. Win Dong is smart, but she's like a blade, she can hurt people at any moment. We need you to come back in. She didn't finish, but I understood. The elites were fighting too fiercely. They needed me, the certified good for nothing, to regulate the atmosphere. I'm not going back, I refused decisively. Mom, now I'm Lam Kin. I'm very happy living here. Hua Kin-du gave a cold laugh, reached into her pocket, and pulled out a card. 1 million, come back for 1 month. The sunflower seeds in my hand dropped to the floor. 1 million, how many meals of braised pork would that buy? How many comics? Ahem, Mom, this isn't about money. She pulled out another card. 5 million. I shot to my feet. Mom, you really know people. I'll pack immediately. But I have a condition. I turned serious. If I go back, I'm only there as a mascot. If anyone dares make me memorize even one vocabulary word, I'm leaving on the spot. Hua Kin-du looked at my money-struck expression and, unexpectedly, smiled faintly as if a burden had lifted. Deal. When I dragged my luggage back to the Lam Villa, Luke Win Dong was kneeling in the middle of the living room. Academician Lam Kwok Dong held a stack of documents, pointing straight at her nose as he scolded furiously. This is the genius algorithm you bragged about? You can't even get the most basic logistic regression right. With an IQ like yours. How did you become valedictorian? Bought your scores? Luke Win Dong cried like pear blossoms in rain. None of the arrogance from her first appearance remaining. When she saw me walk in, her eyes reddened instantly, staring at me like I was her father's killer. Lam Kin, what are you back for? To watch me make a fool of myself? I swaggered over and waved the 5 million card in front of her face. You're right, sis. I didn't just come back to watch the show. I came back to collect money too. Dad, stop scolding her. I turned to Lam Kwok Dong with sincere concern. If you get so mad you damage your health, that'll cost even more in medical bills. I casually snatched the stack of data from his hand. Without even glancing at it, I folded it into a paper airplane. Whoosh. The paper plane flew straight and landed perfectly on top of Luke Win Dong's head. See? I smiled brightly. Now this data can fly. Lam Kwok Dong froze. Luke Win Dong froze too. The atmosphere, taut as a drawn bowstring, somehow cracked open because of that ridiculous paper plane and slowly loosened. Lam Kai Fong stepped out of the lab. Face dark, eyes pinned to me. You still dare come back? I grinned and dug into my pocket, pulling out a 50-cent lollipop. Oh, genius little brother. Come here, eat this, brain supplement. My real mom picked it herself. Guaranteed to make you smarter. He stared at the cheap candy, eyes flickering. Just as he opened his mouth, Luke Win Dong suddenly shot to her feet. Enough. Lam Kin, stop acting. She pointed at me, gaze vicious. Mom, Dad, I've discovered a secret. She isn't stupid at all. She's been hiding her abilities. I checked her computer. She's secretly been contacting a mysterious organization for a long time, even trading the Lam family's core technology on the black market. She came back this time to destroy the Lam family completely. The room fell silent. Hua Kin-du and Lam Kwok Dong's eyes turned icy in an instant. I looked at Luke Win Dong's jealousy-filled face and had only one thought. 5 million really wasn't easy to earn. Her words were like a depth charge detonating under the sea, freezing the air solid. Hua Kin-du's gaze swept over me, cold as a blade. Lam Kin, explain. I turned to Luke Win Dong. She raised her brows smugly, clearly having waited a long time for this moment. Sis, I said slowly, the mysterious organization you mean, is it the group chat called Happy Sweetwater Mutual Aid? I calmly pulled out my phone. And the black market deal, you mean when I sold Little Bro's Collector's Edition Lego set on Shenyu yesterday for 50 yuan? Peeved. Lam Kai Fong almost spat blood. Lam Kin, that was a global limited edition, custom ordered from Germany, worth $100,000. I shrank my neck. The buyer still complained it was expensive. Said those plastic blocks hurt his hands. In the end I had to cover shipping before he agreed. Luke Win Dong's face twisted with rage. Drop the act. I saw you typing extremely complex code myself. Even I couldn't understand it. How could someone with your grades know that? I sighed and opened my battered laptop. Sis, that was cheat code for a game. So my character could live in a mansion. I researched it for days. I turned the screen toward her. It was densely packed with text, lines and lines of script. Her face turned green, then white. Impossible. You must have deleted the evidence already. Hua Kin-du cut her off coldly. Luke Win Dong, you haven't even fixed the hole you caused at the company. And now you're suspecting your own sister. Remember this. The Lam family's resources are for people with ability. Not for someone who only knows how to scheme and speculate. Tears streamed down Luke Win Dong's face. Mom, I'm your real daughter. How can you trust an outsider instead of me? Because she doesn't exhaust people. Lam Kwok Dong suddenly said, his voice weary. You've been here less than a week. And the Lam family hasn't had a single peaceful meal. Every minute you try to prove you're stronger than everyone else. Every second you calculate gains and losses. But Kin, he glanced at me, and for once there was warmth in his eyes. She may be foolish, but she makes us feel like this is still a family. I lowered my head guiltily. Honestly, I was just lazy. I didn't have the energy to stir up trouble. Luke Win Dong looked as if she'd suffered a grave humiliation. She stared at me, hatred undisguised in her eyes. Fine, very fine. You all choose her, don't you? Then I'll show you just how deeply this so-called fool has been hiding. With that, she spun and rushed upstairs. The slam of the door shook the whole villa. I bit my lollipop and turned to Lam Kai Fong. Hey, about that Lego set, once I earn money later. Can I compensate you? He snorted, snatched the lollipop from my hand, and stuffed it into his mouth. Compensate me? In your next life. His words were harsh, but the gloom on his face had clearly eased a lot. Over the next few days, Luke Win Dong became strangely quiet. No more fighting for favor. No more showing off math Olympiad gold medals. She locked herself in her room every day with the door shut tight. I thought she'd finally accepted fate and started enjoying salted fish life in a wealthy household. Until that afternoon. At the WA Corporation's annual press conference, Wah Kin-do stood on stage, imposing and authoritative, presenting the strategic plan for the second half of the year. Suddenly, the giant screen behind her flickered. The PPT vanished, replaced by surveillance footage. In the video, a blurry figure sneaked into Wah Kin-do's office, skillfully opened the safe, and removed a stack of confidential documents. The entire hall erupted. Who is that? The silhouette looks like the Lam family's adopted daughter. At some point, Luke Win-dong had appeared backstage, holding a microphone. Her voice rang through every corner of the hall. Ladies and gentlemen, I regret to inform you that the WA Corporation's core technology has been leaked. The thief is my dear younger sister, Lam Kin. She raised her hand and pointed at the screen. Voice righteous. She exploited the Lam family's trust and acted as a commercial spy for a long time. Mom, Dad, I'm sorry. I can't just stand by and watch the Lam family be destroyed by her. I sat in the VIP seats below the stage with half a croissant still in my mouth. Looking at the silhouette on the screen, identical to me, even the walk deliberately imitated, I suddenly felt something very strange. All those 18 years of books Luke Win-dong studied must have gone straight into a dog's stomach. How on earth did she come up with such low-level framing? When I'd gone back to the Luke family to acknowledge them, I'd heard bits about her. She'd been sharp and clever since childhood, able to understand elementary math problems before even starting school. But her personality was extreme, nothing like the gentle kindness of her parents. Wherever she went, chaos followed. Now the hall had turned into a pot of boiling porridge. Cameras and microphones all pointed at me. Miss Lam Kin, do you have any explanation? Are you really a commercial spy? On stage, Wah Kin-do's face was iron green. She looked at Luke Win-dong, and in her eyes there was no surprise, only unmistakable disappointment. But Luke Win-dong was still immersed in her grand performance of righteous self-sacrifice. Crying miserably. My child, I only just found the evidence. I can't stand by and watch Shoe Corporation collapse. I swallowed the last bite of croissant and rose unhurriedly. Sister Win-dong, with acting like yours, it'd be a waste if you didn't go play an extra in the suburbs. I walked onto the stage and picked up another microphone. Everyone studied that surveillance clip closely. I pointed at the giant screen. The person in the video is wearing my clothes and has my hairstyle. But there's one detail you overlooked. I turned around, my back facing the entire hall. Lam Kin, have a nickname, Lam 3 Steps, because my balance is terrible when I walk. My left foot is always tripping over my right. Everyone, look at that person in the video sneaking into the office, movements light as air. Agile, even doing a beautiful sideways flip. I spread my hands, my tone utterly calm. Sister, do you really think a slab of pork belly weighing 120 pounds like me could pull off a high-difficulty flip like that? Laughter burst out instantly from the audience below. Luke Win-dong's face turned deathly pale. That's because you're pretending. You've always been hiding your abilities. Fine, I nodded. Let's say I was hiding my abilities. Then what about the safe's password? Ms. Hua's safe uses a new generation system combining iris recognition and fingerprints. In this entire house, I'm the only one whose fingerprints are too faint. So I've never been entered into the system from beginning to end. If you don't believe me, you can check right here. Wah Kin-do spoke coldly. No need to check. That safe system was replaced yesterday. The only people whose fingerprints were entered into the new system are me and Luke Win-dong. The whole hall fell silent. Luke Win-dong's eyes went wide, her body beginning to tremble violently. Mom, what are you saying? I didn't. The person in the video is wearing a wig and mask. But the Rolex on her wrist was the gift I gave you when we first met. Wah Kin-do strode straight down from the stage and raised her hand. Smack. The slap rang out loud and sharp. Luke Win-dong, I gave you chances. I thought you were only arrogant and conceited. I never imagined your mind could be this crooked. To frame Kin, you actually staged a theft of confidential data and even wanted to drag Shoe Corporation down with you? Luke Win-dong collapsed onto the floor. Her whole body drained, strength completely gone. It wasn't me. I just wanted to prove she doesn't deserve to stay with the Lam family. I'm the most outstanding one. Outstanding? Lam Kai-fong appeared from nowhere, holding a tablet. Luke Win-dong, that so-called core confidential file you stole was something I deliberately put into the safe 2 days ago. It's a research outline on treating delusional disorder caused by baseless overconfidence. Congratulations, you successfully obtained it. The giant screen behind us flashed again. The contents of the confidential file were projected before the entire hall. The glaring title read, Clinical Observation Report on the Social Impairment and Personality Defects of Luke Windong. Roars of laughter erupted below. Seeing those mocking faces, Luke Windong suddenly screamed, covered her face, and ran out of the hall. I watched her stumbling figure and couldn't help sighing. Mom, shouldn't that 5 million bonus be doubled now? Hwa Kin-do shot me a glance. Her expression complicated and unreadable. Lam Kin, did you already know she was behind the surveillance footage? I shook my head honestly. I didn't, I just thought that Flip looked so cool. There's no way I could learn that in this lifetime. Hwa Kin-do said nothing more. Only, rarely, reached out and patted my shoulder. Come home. The Lam family really does need a good-for-nothing like you. Mom, when you compliment me, can you drop the last 3 words? Luke Windong disappeared completely. I heard she couldn't withstand the shock and went back to the Luke family overnight. The Lam villa returned to its former calm. But that calm, to me, was nothing less than psychological torture. Because the moment Luke Windong left, the entire family's attention shifted onto me. Since Lam Kin isn't a spy, prove you really are just a pure idiot. Lam Kai-fong muttered from his lab while tinkering with a new invention. Not even bothering to turn his head. So the Lam family doesn't lose any more face. Starting tomorrow I'll personally teach you programming. I sprawled on the sofa. And even the potato chips in my hand no longer tasted good. Little brother, you're a genius. I'm trash. We're different species. Don't force it. Quiet. Lam Kai-fong turned, his gloomy eyes sweeping over me. Say one more word and I'll dump all your comics into a paper mill. I surrendered instantly. The next month of my life was pure hell on earth. At 6 every morning, Lam Kai-fong sent a drone hovering beside my ear blasting the periodic table song at maximum volume. In the mornings, Ms. Hwa Kin-do had her assistant drag me to every kind of boring business conference imaginable, forcing me to learn how to understand human language. In the afternoons, academician Lam Kwok-dong hauled me into the lab to watch his experiments and seriously required me to write what he called experimental reflections. Evenings went without saying. I had to endure the sadistic programming class personally taught by Lam Kai-fong. I felt my brain cells going on strike in patches, one cluster after another. Mom, I want to go home. At dinner, I put down my chopsticks, my face more serious than ever before. Go where? Hwa Kin-do sipped her soup elegantly. Isn't this your home? My voice began to tremble. I want to go back to the Luke family. I want braised pork. I want to live happily in a 40 square meter apartment. By the time I finished, my eyes had genuinely reddened. It's too scary here. You're all next-gen CPUs. And I'm just a monitor, and a broken one. Lam Kwok-dong set down his chopsticks and sighed deeply. Kin, what happened with Windong? We were at fault. We always thought ability determined everything. But she made us realize something. A person without a heart, the smarter they are, the greater a disaster they become. He looked at me, rare softness in his eyes. You may be foolish, but you make life feel a little interesting. Dad really doesn't know how to talk, I thought. So Hwa Kin-do continued, her tone calm in a frightening way. To make it up to you, we've decided to increase your educational investment. I've contacted a finishing school in Switzerland for you. You leave next week. The chopsticks slipped from my hand and clattered onto the table. Switzerland. Finishing school. Wasn't that the kind of place that molded people into standard wooden blocks, where even smiling had to meet an angle requirement? I'm not going, I shouted. This is illegal detention. I'm calling the police. Call them. Lam Kai-fong sneered. The police chief is Dad's old classmate. Do you think he'll handle what you call a family education issue? I truly despaired. This family wasn't just full of freaks, they were freaks with power. And me, a genuine piece of trash, had zero room to resist. Just as I was about to secretly pack and run away, my phone suddenly buzzed. It was Mom Luke calling. Kin, Windong's back. Her voice sounded exhausted. She locks herself in her room all day, not eating or drinking, muttering that she's not inferior to anyone. It breaks my heart to see. Could you come visit her? My heart stirred. Opportunity had arrived. Using the excuse of visiting Luke Windong, I successfully slipped out of the Lam house. The moment I stepped into that cramped, shabby little home I knew so well, I felt revived all over. Luke Windong sat on the bedroom floor surrounded by piles of Math Olympiad workbooks. Her hair was disheveled, her eyes hollow, scribbling frantically on the wall with a pen. Not a trace left of her former sharp brilliance. Derivative wrong, should be squared. She had completely lost her mind. I handed her a meat bun. Sister, eat something. Luke Windong suddenly looked up, her gaze drilling into me as if trying to see through my skull. Lam Kin, you won. Are you satisfied now? Her voice was hoarse, thick with resentment. You destroyed everything I had. You destroyed the Lam family's trust in me. I crouched in front of her and shook my head helplessly. Sister, the one who destroyed everything wasn't me. It was you. You wanted to win so badly you didn't even care about the line that makes someone human. I sighed. The Lam family may be abnormal, but they aren't stupid. Luke Windong suddenly burst into loud laughter. Twisted and terrifying. Not stupid? Ha, of course they're not stupid. She ground her teeth. They're just cold-blooded. They only like people who can bring them value. Her eyes were sharp as knives. Lam Kin, do you really think they love you? They just treat you like a pet. Like a toy to relieve stress. I fell silent. She wasn't wrong. In the elite ecosystem of the Lam family, I was an anomaly, but at least an anomaly like me was real. Stop tormenting yourself, I said softly. Go back to the Lam family. Dad Luke and Mom Luke truly love you. They don't care whether you're the top scorer or whether you can inherit assets. Luke Windong looked at me, something complicated flickering in her eyes, as if she were wavering. Just then, hurried footsteps sounded outside the door. Hua Kin Du, Lam Kwok Dong, and Lam Kai Fong, all of them appeared. They stood inside the cramped living room, utterly out of place. Lam Kin, come back with me. Hua Kin Du's voice was as domineering as ever, leaving no room for refusal. The moment Luke Windong saw them, her composure shattered. She suddenly lunged forward. Dad, Mom, I was wrong. Give me another chance. She clutched Hua Kin Du's leg, crying until her voice went hoarse. I can do it. I can earn back those 30 million. Don't abandon me. Hua Kin Du frowned and instinctively stepped back. That tiny motion was like a blade, severing the last thread of Luke Windong's sanity. You still don't want me. Her voice trembled, then broke apart. You only want this piece of trash. I tried so hard to prove myself. Why? Suddenly Luke Windong pulled a paper cutter from her pocket and pressed it against her throat. Lam Kin, didn't you always want to play the life-saving hero? She laughed hysterically. Then I'll die right in front of you and let you live in a nightmare forever. The room froze. Windong, don't be impulsive. Mom Luke's legs gave out, and she collapsed to the floor. I looked into Luke Windong's crazed eyes, and an indescribable sorrow rose in me. Was this the product of elite education? The moment they failed, their only choice was self-destruction. Put the knife down. I stepped forward slowly. Don't you want to go back to the Lam family? Fine, I'll give the position back to you. Luke Windong froze. What did you say? I said I quit. I turned to Hua Kin Du and Lam Kwok Dong. Mom, Dad, I don't want the 5 million anymore. I'm giving it back. I took a deep breath. I'm more suited to being ordinary, to living in that cramped old apartment, eating braised pork every day. Luke Windong is smarter than I am, more ambitious. She's the daughter you want. I spoke slowly, every word clear. As long as you guide her gently, she'll get better. Hua Kin Du stared at me, fury blazing in her eyes. Lam Kin, what do you think the Lam family is? A place you can come and go as you please? I met her gaze steadily. I just want to be a person. I don't want to be a shock absorber. I don't want to be a mascot. My voice was light but unwavering. Your love is too heavy. I can't carry it. Luke Windong stared at me blankly. The paper cutter fell from her hand with a dry clatter. She seemed unable to understand why the thing I was desperate to escape was the very thing she had risked everything to grasp. The air tightened unbearably. Then Lam Kai Fong suddenly spoke, his voice low and, for once, free of mockery. Fine, if you want to leave, you can. He stepped in front of me, his eyes cold as ice. But you have to complete one final experiment for me. My heart thudded. What experiment? Lam Kai Fong pulled a black remote from his pocket. I planted a mini bomb in your comic collection. One press of this button, and your life's passion disappears. I stared at him. He was insane. Unless, he continued calmly, you can solve the encryption program on my computer within 3 minutes. He opened the laptop in front of me. The screen filled with dense, flashing code. Solve it. You're free. Fail, and you come back with me as my lifelong lab rat. I looked at the lines of code. And the world tilted. Was he trying to kill me? Sweat slid down my forehead. 3 minutes. Lam Kai Fong truly was my biological brother, a killer without spilling blood. Countdown starts now. He pressed the timer coldly. Everyone stared at me. Even Luke Win Dong stopped crying and fixed her eyes on the screen. She had been the top student in science. And even she couldn't decipher this code. How could I? Lam Kin, stop wasting your effort. Luke Win Dong sneered. This level of encryption would require at least 3 supercomputers running in parallel. I ignored her. My brain accelerated. There was something I had never told anyone. I might have ranked last academically. But I had an almost instinctive sensitivity to numbers and structures. 18 years in the Lam family, I might have slept through most of it. But I was never truly trash. I just hated studying in exams. As I stared at the shifting characters, they stopped being code. They became moving puzzle pieces. 1 minute left. Lam Kai Fong's voice carried no warmth. I inhaled sharply, and my fingers began flying across the keyboard at a terrifying speed. The clatter echoed sharply. Behind her glasses, Hua Qindu's eyes flashed with shock. Academician Lam Kwok Dong stepped forward unconsciously. His gaze darkening. What is she doing? Is she brute forcing it? No. Lam Kai Fong's voice sounded again. No longer cold but faintly trembling. She's reconstructing the logic. 30 seconds. My heart pounded so violently it felt ready to burst from my chest. At the final string of code, I closed my eyes. In my mind flashed an image of Lam Kai Fong as a child. Sitting at his desk, hands twisting a Rubik's Cube without hesitation. The endpoint of logic was never complexity, but ultimate simplicity. Bang! I slammed the enter key. The red exclamation mark on the screen vanished instantly, replaced by a cold green check mark. The room fell into absolute silence. So quiet it felt like you could hear a pin drop. Lam Kai Fong stared at the screen, frozen stiff. How did you do that? His eyes were filled with disbelief. Luke Win Dong looked as though she had seen a ghost. Her face bloodless. Impossible. You even failed calculus. I slumped back into the chair, panting. I scored 15 in math because I used the other 135 points thinking about philosophical questions like why we even have to take the test. I turned to Lam Kai Fong. Now give me the remote. He was silent for a long time before finally handing it to me. I took it, walked to the window, and without hesitation threw it straight into the trash can downstairs. Am I free now? Hua Qindu looked at me, her expression more complicated than ever. Lam Kin, you really have been hiding your abilities. Her voice slowed. You're smarter than Win Dong. You may even have more talent than Lam Kai Fong. She stepped closer, and for once there was something like pleading in her tone. Come back. As long as you come back, Shu Corporation will be yours one day. I laughed. Mom, you still don't understand. I looked her straight in the eye. I cracked that code because I wanted to leave. If I stay, I'll just become another Luke Win Dong or another Lam Kai Fong. I don't want to be a genius. I just want to be a piece of trash who eats and sleeps well. I turned and hugged Mom Luke. Mom, I want braised pork. Right now. Mom Luke held me tight, her voice breaking. Okay, I'll make it for you. Forget those lunatics. Hua Qindu and Lam Kwok Dong stood there like 2 cold stone statues. They possessed the greatest wealth and intellect in the world. Yet in that moment they looked strangely impoverished. Let's go. Lam Kai Fong lightly tugged Hua Qindu's sleeve. She doesn't belong here. He looked at me deeply. And for the first time there was no contempt in his eyes, only something called respect. They took Luke Win Dong away. Before leaving, she turned back to look at me once. There was no hatred left in her gaze. Only a deep haze. I knew that in this lifetime she might never truly step out of the cage called excellence again. As for me, I could finally lie on the small bed in that 40 square meter apartment and drift into a beautiful dream with no logic. No formulas, only braised pork, spicy stewed trotters, kung pao chicken, and sweet and sour pork. A few months later, a burst of noise woke me. I yawned and walked to the door, only to see more than a dozen luxury cars parked downstairs and a crowd of men in black suits frantically carrying equipment. What are you doing? I rubbed my eyes and asked. The man in front bowed respectfully. Miss Lam Kin, Madam Hua said that since you don't want to return, she'll move the Lam residence here. This is a custom 500 square meter renovation plan for your old neighborhood. This is the braised pork chef we flew in from Italy for you. And also, young Master Lam Kai Fong has purchased this entire district. From now on it will be his private laboratory. I stared at him in silence. I looked at the black-suited workers installing cameras outside my biological mother's door. Then glanced at Lam Kai-fong standing in the distance waving calmly at me. And a peaceful dread rose in my chest. Maybe I really wouldn't be able to return that 5 million after all. This top-tier wealthy family truly had no concept of reason. They even knew teleportation. Apparently, I stood on the balcony watching the black-clad crowd bustling below. My head pounding like it was being hammered. Hwa Kin-do really lived up to her title as a bulldozer business magnate. Her idea of moving here was basically flattening the entire old block and rebuilding it from scratch. Kin, what do we do now? Mom Luke stood there clutching a spatula. Her face panicked. They just said they want to install some kind of automatic climate control system in our house. And they plan to expand the bathroom to 30 square meters. They even said that would ensure better quality meditation time for you. Grinding my teeth, I pulled out my phone and called Hwa Kin-do directly. Mom, what exactly are you trying to do? Her voice on the other end was as calm as ever. Kin, if you like the atmosphere here, I respect that, but I cannot accept my daughter living in an environment with potential safety and hygiene risks. I've purchased all land within a 5-kilometer radius and will build a premium immersive ordinary life experience zone. There will be the most authentic street skewers. Though the ingredients must be organic and air-shipped. There will be the most realistic neighbor interactions. Though the neighbors will actually be retired sociologists and psychologists. I almost fainted on the spot. Mom, that's not living. That's a disguised reality show. And Lam Kai-fong too. Tell him to move his drones out of my sight. The moment I finished shouting, a drone carrying a cup of milk tea floated silently toward me and stopped in front of my face. A small note was taped to it. Excess sugar reduces intelligence. But this one uses a substitute. Signed, your younger brother who doesn't want you getting any dumber. I snatched the cup and took a hard sip. Delicious. Just as I was preparing to fight this family to the death. Luke Win-dong appeared again. She was no longer dressed in haute couture. Just a plain white t-shirt and simple pants. She held 2 bags of fruit and stood at the door looking hesitant and awkward. Lamkin, can I come in? I paused, then stepped aside. Come in. She walked in, her gaze sweeping over the half-renovated living room, and gave a bitter smile. Madame Hua's methods are still as decisive as ever. I handed her a plate of sliced apples. You've figured things out? She nodded. I have. She paused, then continued. After I left that day, I went back to school and voluntarily withdrew. I was so shocked I dropped my apple slice. You withdrew? You were the top scorer. So what if I was? Her eyes were much brighter now. No longer strained. I only took those exams to satisfy the Lam family. She pressed her lips together and smiled faintly. What I've always wanted was to study art. I want to paint. She pulled a sketchbook from her bag and handed it to me. I opened it. Inside were no formulas or complex graphs. Only scenes from daily life in this old neighborhood, old men playing chess. The street skewer vendor on the sidewalk. And even me, holding a drumstick and gnawing on it with zero dignity. The drawings were beautiful. Even my double chin was captured vividly. Lam Kin, thank you, Luke Win-dong said softly. You made me understand that excellence isn't the only way to live. I'm teaching a children's art class now. The pay isn't high, but I sleep peacefully. After this stable period, I'll start other projects. Mom and Dad Lam agreed too. Soon we'll go change our surnames back. Over there is too vast. Everyone just stares at each other and at business algorithms until life feels meaningless. They all miss you. I miss Mom Luke and Dad Luke too. I looked at her, and warmth rose in my chest. It seemed this absurd twist of fate had finally helped everyone find their place. Except me. I leaned over the railing and looked downstairs. The familiar Rolls-Royce slowly pulled up. Hwa Kin-do stepped out holding a brand new education contract. I knew perfectly well my battle with the Lam family was far from over. Kin, Hwa Kin-do shouted up through a loudspeaker. If you don't want to go to Switzerland, fine, but I've invited the world's top esports coach. If you make it into a professional league within 3 months, I'll allow you to continue being useless. Mom, just to keep me from being idle. You really go all out. I muttered. Lam Kai-fong's drone flew over again, this time dangling a top-tier gaming headset. The note beside it read solemnly, Sis. I calculated it. With your neural reflex speed, you can still be saved if you play support. I took the headset and slowly put it on. The sunlight outside the window blazed brilliantly, shining over this half-gentrified old house. Looking at these people, eccentric, overbearing, yet truly loving me, I suddenly felt that maybe it wasn't so bad after all. I leaned over the railing and shouted downstairs. The braised pork chef stays. The esports coach stays. But get rid of those sociologist grandparents. I want real old folks who actually know how to play chess. Hua Qindu stood below and looked up at me, the corner of her lips lifting slightly. It was the first time she had ever given me such a gentle smile. Lam Qin, a husky lost among wolves, had finally found the perfect posture for wreaking havoc in this world. That's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please like the video, subscribe to China Story Tales, and stay tuned for more stories.